The day Marcus Reed was fired, he walked out of the glass tower carrying a cardboard box in one hand and his phone in the other. Rain fell across the city, soaking his jacket as the security guard watched him disappear through the revolving doors. Inside that box were 12 years of memories, a few family photographs, an old coffee mug, and the small wooden drawing his 8-year-old daughter had made for him. Marcus had no idea that before the night was over, one phone call would change the fate of everyone who had laughed while watching him leave. Before we continue, if you believe in humanity, second chances, and the idea that someone's worth should never be measured by their position or appearance, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Humanity Tales for more emotional stories about kindness, courage, and unexpected second chances. Marcus had spent 12 years building his career at Sterling Meridian, a powerful investment and technology company known for its impressive headquarters and polished executives. He had started at the bottom, working late nights in a small operations department while raising his daughter, Amara, alone after losing his wife several years earlier. Every promotion had been earned through patience, discipline, and sacrifice. Marcus never complained about being underestimated. He simply worked harder. He knew people sometimes noticed his skin before they noticed his skills, and sometimes noticed his quiet clothes before they noticed his intelligence. But he believed that character would eventually speak louder than prejudice. Then came the morning everything changed. Marcus was called into a conference room where 3 senior executives sat around a polished table. His manager, Richard Hale, wouldn't even look him in the eye. A restructuring decision had been made, they told him. His position was being eliminated immediately. Marcus knew the department had been performing well. He also knew that only 2 weeks earlier, he had discovered serious irregularities in several company contracts and reported them through the proper channels. Since then, certain executives had suddenly stopped answering his messages. Richard slid a document across the table and told Marcus that his services were no longer required. Marcus stared at the paper for several seconds. He thought about Amara waiting at home after school. He thought about the rent, the grocery bills, the school shoes she needed, and the promise he had made to take her to the science museum that weekend. He could have shouted. He could have demanded answers. Instead, he quietly signed the paperwork, picked up his box, and walked away. As he crossed the lobby, several employees watched from behind their desks. A few whispered. One executive smiled as Marcus passed, as if his dismissal were entertainment. Marcus kept walking. Outside, he finally stopped beneath an awning. His phone vibrated. It was a message from Amara reminding him about their weekend plans. Marcus looked at the words and swallowed the lump in his throat. He didn't want his daughter to know that her father had just lost his job. He wanted to protect her from the fear he was carrying. But Marcus had forgotten one important thing. Years earlier, before Sterling Meridian became the company everyone knew, Marcus had quietly invested his savings into a small technology firm. He had never told his co-workers. He hadn't invested because he wanted power. He had invested because the founders were brilliant young engineers who had created technology Marcus believed could change the industry. Over the years, that little company had grown into something enormous. And Marcus wasn't merely an investor. He was the controlling shareholder. The board of Sterling Meridian had kept his identity private because Marcus preferred to remain behind the scenes. He wanted to be judged by his work, not by the size of his bank account. Even after becoming wealthy, he continued working because he loved solving problems and wanted Amara to grow up seeing her father as someone who earned respect through effort. That afternoon, Marcus sat alone in his car and looked at the company building through the windshield. He remembered every late night, every ignored suggestion, every time someone had assumed he couldn't belong in the room. Then he remembered the contracts he had discovered. Those contracts weren't ordinary mistakes. They contained evidence that several executives had been secretly directing company money toward businesses connected to their friends and relatives. Marcus had reported the problem because he believed it was the right thing to do. Instead of investigating, they had fired him. Marcus took a slow breath and made one call. The person on the other end answered immediately. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult anyone. He simply explained what had happened and asked the board to activate the ownership review that had been prepared months earlier. Within minutes, the situation inside Sterling Meridian began to change. The executives who had laughed in the lobby were suddenly receiving urgent messages. Legal teams entered the building. Financial records were secured. The board called an emergency meeting. Richard Hale was asked to remain in his office while investigators reviewed the contracts. Then Marcus walked back through the same glass doors. This time, nobody stopped him. The lobby became silent when the board chairman approached him and introduced him not as an employee, but as the controlling shareholder whose investment had helped save the company years earlier. Richard's face went pale. The people who had laughed suddenly couldn't meet Marcus's eyes. But Marcus didn't celebrate their fear. He simply looked around the room and said that the investigation would determine who was responsible. Anyone who had abused their position would be held accountable, regardless of title, salary, or influence. The investigation eventually confirmed the financial misconduct. Several executives were removed, and the company began cooperating with authorities. But Marcus surprised everyone with what he did next. He refused to become the kind of leader he had once feared. Instead of replacing arrogance with arrogance, he created a new employee protection program. Workers could report discrimination, corruption, harassment, and unethical behavior without fear of losing their jobs. He established scholarships for employees' children and created a fund to help single parents facing unexpected financial hardship. Months later, Marcus stood before hundreds of employees in the same building where he had once walked out carrying a cardboard box. Amara stood in the front row. Marcus looked at his daughter and smiled. He told everyone that losing a job had felt like the end of his world that rainy afternoon, but sometimes life closes one door only to reveal the truth behind another. He said success wasn't about having enough money to punish people who hurt you. Real success was having enough strength to choose justice without becoming cruel. Amara reached for her father's hand. Marcus looked down at the small wooden drawing she had made for him years earlier. He had kept it inside that cardboard box the entire time. It was still there. A little crooked. A little faded. But priceless. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that difficult seasons do not define their future, and subscribe to Humanity Tales for more stories about courage, kindness, and second chances. And before we end, comment, choose character, if you believe that true success is not about how powerful you become, but about how you treat people when you finally have the power to change their lives. Marcus never forgot the day he walked out of that building with nothing but a box and a broken heart. Because that was the day he discovered something greater than revenge, the power to turn humiliation into justice, hardship into opportunity, and one painful chapter into a new beginning. Sometimes, the person everyone overlooks isn't weak. Sometimes, they're simply waiting for the right moment to show the world who they really are.